Welcome to Soul of Travel. If you are a regular listener, you know that this is a really exciting day for me. I probably mention Rise Travel Institute on at least 50% of my episodes. So today I am sitting down with Vincie Ho, who's the founder of Rise Travel Institute. And I'm just so excited to finally get to bring you into this space to talk more about your journey and your work in the industry.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. I've been waiting for this day for so long. So really, really excited to be on this with you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so grateful, and I can't wait for our listeners to get to have the opportunity to hear this conversation. So, just as we get started, I wanted to give you the opportunity to. Do we have dogs in the background? We can pause for a second if you need to do.
Sorry, I
So,
forgot to warn you.
okay, it's
Yeah,
all
this
right.
is usually the time of the day where the UPS truck passes by and then my dogs will go crazy.
It's all right. We can, the lovely magic for the podcast, we'll edit for the people who watch live. They've seen my dog go berserk a million times, so it's okay.
This is the real life. This is the real us, right? So
Yes. Okay,
yeah.
so Vincie, I'd love to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are in travel right now.
Sure. So my name is Vincie Ho. I am originally from Hong Kong and currently living in New Jersey, United States. I am the founder and executive director of Rise Travel Institute. Thank you so much, Christine, for being such a great cheerleader and introducing us to your listeners. So I'm really grateful. My background is actually has nothing to do with tourism or travel. I used to teach as a French lecturer at the University of Hong Kong for many years, and academia was what I thought I would spend the rest of my life in. I was also a researcher in linguistics. I had my PhD in linguistics and phonology, which also has nothing to do with travel. But I would have to say that you know, because or thanks to the fact that I was, in education, I had a lot of time to travel around the world and also occasionally go on field trips or research trips with students. So that probably kind of paved the kind of like set the initial how should I put it, like planted the seed in me.
Mhm.
um, and then I went on a lot of trips, like solo trips on my own. And I'm going to go into details, of some of them, which kind of led me into the sustainable travel space where I'm right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting that you mentioned like some of your past career and education and that it doesn't really necessarily connect to travel. However, I feel like the magic thing about travel is that actually everything intersects with travel. Like I don't really
Exactly.
think that you can pull it out of anything, which for me has been the magic of these conversations that I've had with so many women is just seeing the ways that we can use travel as a way to access so many things around the world, so many topics, so many people, so many different things. And I
Abs-
think we'll definitely, through our conversation, learning more about the work you do at Rise, really allow people to see some of that deep connection and interconnectivity that I'm referring to. Where I
Absolutely.
where I would love to start is to really understand for you not only how travel began to show up in your life, but how it also started to show you this passion that you had for creating more conscious travelers and connecting social impact in travel. What did that look like for you in your travel journey, and what kind of started to create those awarenesses and like those moments that ended up being what led to Rise as you reflect back on your travel journeys?
Sure. So I started traveling overseas when I was When I was really young, I had the privilege to travel with my family outside of Hong Kong as I grew up. But then back in the days, it was mostly organized tours. You like just as many mass tourists. We would go to one place, take pictures, like go to the best restaurants, and experience what we call like the local food, and then that was pretty much it. So in my early days of travel experience, it wasn't there wasn't much thinking involved in terms of like my own impact on the local communities, on the destinations, until I started to study in France. Like I spent a year studying abroad and like traveling abroad, traveling by myself, and started to realize how much I did not know, like how ignorant I was as a person. And like through traveling um, to places like Berlin, for example, was really my first contact with what it means by you know understanding contemporary history, and like how that impacts the how that is still like impacting the lives of many people. And so I had first that awareness, and then like very quickly I became like super politically minded, and I was like so interested in politics, and started to realize, there are so many sufferings around the world, and I wanted to do something to help. And then I started to look into volunteerism, and I signed up for trips going to Kenya, going to Rwanda, going to all these places. And then when I was in Rwanda in 2011, I was placed in an orphanage, and I started to work there, quote unquote work. And I just realized every day I wasn't really assigned to any particular role. I wasn't being helpful there, and I wasn't like helping anyone, or like the children that I was supposed to, that I thought I would be helping. And I still remember one day one of the kids was sick, and I had to um uh with other like caregivers in the orphanage, we had to rush that kid to the hospital. But like even at the hospital, I could not do anything because I didn't speak the local language, and I wasn't able to communicate with the kid, and I just basically wasn't able to do anything. And I think that period of time really gave me a wake up call that despite the best of intentions, I did not understand like the impact of myself being there. Like not only that I wasn't being helpful, the the other thing is like, when I was leaving, I was already bonded with the kids, and it was like the departure was really hard for me. So like imagine how harder it would be for the kids. And all the volunteers just keep coming and going, and like what emotional toll would those visits have on the children. Um, and then let alone the money that I spent on this trip, which could have been gone to support other more like sustainable development projects, for example. So I think that was probably the turning point where I started to really think more about how my trips would impact other people. Whether or not like you have the best of intentions, that doesn't matter. You have to really think about what the people, like how your visit would affect the communities and the environment and the place you visit, rather than just like focusing on what I want to do as a traveler. So I think that was probably what motivated me into unlearning what I thought about meaningful travel should be like. And then I also wanted to take this opportunity. It's just so timely to talk about this today. So LinkedIn reminded me of reminded me that today is the 9th-year anniversary of my connection with Eliza Raymond, one of the co-founders of Good Travel. And I really want to bring her up today because even like 10 years ago, when I was doing all this, going on these long tourist trips in Rwanda, I was connected with her. And I think it was probably the same time that she also wanted to move away from, like she was working with the company that placed me in this placement, and she was also moving away from that kind of like commodified bond tourism, and she has set up a new social good business to really shift the focus away from bond tourism to long-term sustainable impact, on tourism destinations. So yeah, I just really wanted to say that it was actually her who brought me into the space, and like kind of like seeing her grow and me growing with her. It's just, one of the best things that happened in my life. So I wanted to thank her, like a wonderful, like the kindest person that I've ever met in my life, who inspired me to get on this journey.
Thank you for mentioning
Yeah.
her. And I've also been so lucky to have connected with her and have had some amazing conversations. I think that's one thing about this space and travel, and especially these conversations that have been slowly happening for years, but are really intensifying. This community is kind of unlike anything
Yes.
else. And I think we'll definitely talk a little bit about that near the end of our conversation. But it's I think something that's really important to how all of this is evolving, and it's so different. I think when you look at things from like a business mindset, like I don't feel like this movement is evolving in the way that many businesses have evolved. And it's definitely more of this really passion and purpose driven in organizations and companies that are leaning towards starting to create more responsible and mindful travel programs. Um, and the other thing that I wanted to mention, really looking at this from a business perspective, a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs or business owners or people interested in getting an industry. Rise was started in 2020. So much like my business, which was started in 2019, it was like this perfect moment. You, Elise, knew you were in the pandemic when you started your business. I didn't know that it was coming around the corner. However, the podcast came out of this time. And I think that it was the same energy that I think maybe both you and I witnessed. And so I would love to talk a little bit about, I think this also will bring in like this community as well. Like, why was this the right moment in the middle of a pandemic, the right time to start a travel program like this?
Absolutely. Well, to be completely transparent with you, I started Rise in the middle of the pandemic. It's, you know, because first of all, I, as an avid traveler, it was also the first time in a long time that didn't I didn't get to travel. So I had a lot of time, and finally to really put my dream project into reality. So because I had always wanted to build a curriculum on sustainable education, sustainable travel education. And I just never found the time. So it was the best timing. But I also think, strategically, it was also the best timing because everyone was, for once, grounded. And we saw before 2019 the like the really bad impact of mass tourism had on all the most popular destinations around the world. So I just thought, what, since we couldn't travel anywhere anyway, this is the best time to all get educated, and for us to share resources with people who want to do it more mindfully but don't have the tools to.
Mhm.
So yeah, and also I would have to add a little bit about why in June 2020, um, in June 2020, I'm not sure if you still remember, it was at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States. And anti-oppression is really something, or like social justice and anti-oppression is something really close to my heart. And I just thought that, it is important to talk about issues. And as you said earlier, the best way to talk about these issues would be, through the lens of travel, right? Like, using travel to connect people, to understand all these interconnectedness of issues, and using travel as the context to address these issues, to bring awareness to people around the world. And that was why I chose to start Rise in the middle of the pandemic.
Mhm. I remember when I first started seeing posts on LinkedIn, and I remember seeing, this program, and I'm like, wait a second, anti-oppression in travel, sustainability, like there were all these words that just definitely piqued my attention, and were also ways that I had maybe been showing up in my mind about travel, but really didn't know how to get it from these feelings or observations that I had had into action. And I just remember thinking, who are the brave souls that are doing this, especially right now? Because like you said, this was in the height of this time where we're having these intense conversations, and where there's also a lot of resistance to conversations because
Yes.
now we're not sure what we can say and what we can't say and how we should say it and who we can have
Hmm.
conversations with. And I just really, this is where my fangirl of this organization started. But I reached out to everyone on LinkedIn who had any association, and I was just like, I don't know what you're doing yet, and I'm so excited, and I'm just letting you know I'm watching, because I just was so curious to see how this was going to evolve. And I have really, really enjoyed seeing all the people who've showed up to create the content that you are offering. It's just been, again, this community is something amazing, and I'll let you speak to that because I'm sure they're near and dear to your heart. But like, it just, as someone witnessing this journey, I just have just felt like really proud as an industry to see this happen. Like, I think it was also a time where the tourism industry was really getting run through the mud. It was part of why I wanted to create Soul of Travel, is
Hmm.
like, I knew people were doing better than this in travel, and their stories weren't being told, and I really
Yeah,
just wanted to tell those stories. And so I think we kind of both jumped in from this same place. Like, it seemed a little crazy, but I feel like it was kind of this same energy that we latched onto in different directions. And
absolutely.
around the same time, I read, and I have next to me, and people listening to the podcast won't know, but Beyond Guilt Trips, which we'll also get into. But I remember I got into like page 3 of the 5-page prologue, and I was like, this has been the thing I've been waiting for. And again,
Exactly.
like LinkedIn, I connected Dr. Anu Taranoff, and I was like, okay, I'm 3 pages into your book and it's already changed my life.
Dr. Anu Tarnav likes to, I mean, she loves to joke about how much she wished the book was there for her when she started to travel, which is so true. I mean, like this is, and then which is why we have chosen her book to be our text for our flagship certificate program at Rise Travel Institute. This is just so important. Ah, yes, and I
And
just really wanted to applaud, your efforts in gathering, or like just the how much great minds you've attracted towards um your podcast and your community. It has been amazing to watch as well in the past couple of years.
thank
So
you. Thank
yeah.
you so much. Yeah, for people listening, you'll notice like there's some mutual love. I've been like really fangirling over Vincie forever, and we finally got to meet in person not too long ago, which was really great given that this Zoom world we've been living in. So yeah, so I would like to start to talk a little bit now about the flagship program That was your pilot program in the certificate in sustainability and anti-oppression travel. So you know, partnered with a few people to start to get this to take shape, and this is
Mm-hmm.
really your first offering.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find these pieces that became the building blocks of your program, and can we talk a little bit about what those are and why they're really important to travelers when they're starting to understand how they can create impact with their travel journey?
Absolutely. So, just to give you a little bit of the background, before I started RISE, I actually did a graduate certificate program in humane education with Institute for Humane Education, and the framework that we are using at RISE is pretty much like inspired by that program, which emphasizes a lot on systems thinking or using systems thinking to understand the interconnectedness of issues around the world, whether it's social justice, animal justice, or environmental justice. And basically, I've always said, even to my mentors at IHE, Institute for Humane Education, that what RISE is doing is pretty much like putting that learning into, into the context of travel. So as I was conceptualizing the flagship program or the pilot program in 2021, um, it was essential for us to first of all define what sustainability really means, right? Like how holistic it could be, rather than just focusing on, as many people would assume, that it's only about the environment, whereas sustainability is really about how we sustain, the well-being of the planet, including communities, biodiversity, and local and global environment, right? So we just took that angle and expanded that into a program of 10 sessions, focusing on the first part on our relationship with the world, our privilege and power, our intersectionality, and how that interacts with um, the rest of the world, and how the power dynamics play out as we travel. So, with that, we'll move on to looking at Indigenous communities and like what Indigenous tourism should be like. Then we move on to like animals in tourism. What is the ethics of partaking or participating in active tourism activities that involve animals? And so at Rise Travel Institute, we don't tell people what is right and what is wrong. What we really want to be able to do, is to inspire people to ask the right questions so that they make the most thoughtful choices on their own. And we very often we dive so deep into topics, into issues that allow students to explore the gray areas, like whether or not we should boycott elephant riding, or whether or not we should boycott a certain tourism activities. So what we really like to do is to explore gray areas and keep asking questions and inspire our students to ask questions. And then we move on to climate change, the impact of climate change on tourism, and how tourism has contributed to climate change, and this two-way relationship. And then we also move on to some other more practical issues, like how to photograph communities that we encounter during our travels with mindfulness and intention, things like that. And then, like, beyond the flagship program, now we are adding short courses based on themes and also destinations. And some of the themes include how to, how to tell your stories in the most thoughtful, responsible, and ethical way. And so we just have this short course that came out last week by Joanna Haugen, the founder of Rooted. And she's just, like, the thought leader in that space, right?
Mhm.
And we're so lucky to have her. And also, like, we have been so fortunate to be able to gather these amazing people, like scientists, academics, industry leaders, and just to build this curriculum together with us, and I just can never thank them enough. So yeah, I don't know why, like within 1.5 years, Rise has the good fortune of gathering amazing people to form this community, and I think it's probably because our mission and vision really resonates with people. So like they have a lot of faith in us. Even before our pilot program was launched, a lot of people were already, you know, um, like really kind of waiting what we have to offer.
Mhm.
And yeah, so now we are, in our second year of operations. We are adding, we're like working really hard to expand our curriculum, and hopefully we will have more offerings that would resonate with even more people, so that we can, really cultivate a global community of mindful travelers that would, who would travel in such a way that benefit uh, destinations around the world.
Yeah. I just keep thinking that the reason that those people all came is we were waiting. Like, I just know that as soon, like I said, I can't be the only person that saw that and went, yes, like I just, whatever this is, I'm ready for it. I also felt like this is kind of how my podcast started. Like, I emailed a few people and I thought, this is what I really want to do. These are the stories I want to tell. This is the picture I want to paint. I think people aren't really talking about this outside of our bubble, which, I
Yeah.
really forget that it's a bubble. And I remember going to an event when I launched my business right before the pandemic, and it was the first big travel event I'd been to in a long time. It was certainly the first like mainstream travel event I'd been to in, I don't
Hmm.
even know, for a very long time, because it's not where I typically operate. And it was this real like awareness and awakening to the fact that there is so much work to do, like because I'm so immersed in educational travel, sustainable travel, impactful travel. Like that has been my through line since I started showing up at this event. And they were like, oh yeah, we have this great section for like responsible travel, adventure travel, eco travel. And I was like, oh great, amazing, put me there. I'm like, do you have anything for women only travel? Oh, do people do that? I was like, okay, well, we'll talk about that later. But so he takes me in, and there's like this like 2 half rows for our section. And like there's also someone selling books and vacuums and like giving massages. And I just thought, oh no, like I thought we'd come so much further than this. So my answer to why they've come is because it's so needed and we have been
Yeah.
waiting. And,
Yeah.
much like when I read this book in Beyond Guilt Trips, I think many of us who have traveled in this way for much of our lives, or who maybe had a sense of it, we didn't know, we didn't have words for it. We didn't have language for it. I think
Yeah.
there's been a huge
Exactly.
evolution in language
Hmm.
across the board in the last 2 years in both in travel, but just in consciousness raising. And for
Absolutely.
me, that's where my like heart, like reading this book, I was like, I remember thinking, I shouldn't be taking these pictures. This doesn't feel right. I don't know why,
Hmm.
but it doesn't feel
Hmm.
right. And I
Hmm.
remember like everywhere I traveled, noticing that Indigenous populations were the ones that were at, the lowest caste, and were really like, I was like, how did this happen everywhere? Like my mind just kept trying to understand this. And this is 20, 25 years ago. I didn't have any understanding of colonialism or anything. And like, as
Hmm.
I start to read this, I'm like, well, this makes the most sense. And so I'm so excited for travelers to now have this language to be able to express what they're seeing, express what they're feeling, know how to make better choices. But I can tell this resonates for you. So how have you seen that unfolding?
Exactly. I think like in the last 2 years, the industry has made a great shift towards, you know, um, mainstreaming. Well, maybe it's maybe I'm still dreaming about. I mean, we are like we have to admit that we're in a pretty niche industry, but like seeing a lot of more mainstream events talking or giving the center stage to speakers to talk about sustainable travel or ethical travel is something really encouraging, because like, a few years ago it wasn't like that at all, and people love to talk about travel because they want to see like what there is in there for them, right? Like going to all these travel events, getting the best deals, and learning how to monetize their blogs and things like that. And it was pretty much all that we cared about, like, at least at events that I went, travel events that I went to a few years ago. But now I feel that the tourism industry is really making a lot of efforts in shifting the conversation towards how to make how to build a more regenerative future for tourism, and really cultivating, I mean, educating travelers, and also like coming up with tools that can like facilitate that, right? Because like travelers may have the best intentions to travel more sustainably, but if they don't have the tools, they don't know how to do that, right? So I I I also think that, as you said, we, especially at Rise, we want to be able to provide that language for people to be able to talk about it. And we believe that we are just like opening the door for them into a new world where they can continue their journey of you know unlearning and learning and discovering, because we are basically providing them, or our students or travelers, with a way of thinking, so that in the future they would be able to, like, um, investigate or like research what would be best for the communities, and for the environment and things like that. So yeah, I think like we really want to be able to like provide that tool. And also when we first started, there have already been a lot of initiatives in the industry, but a lot of them were focused on tourism professionals, and like, DEI, and sustainability and things like that. There have been programs for tourism professionals in hospitality, and tour like for tour operators. But then I just felt that lack um, a systemic approach to offering education to travelers. So that's how we started the concept of building a curriculum. No,
Mhm.
there are so many blog posts and like resources out there on the internet too, actually, in news articles, and like talking about how to travel more sustainably, but really having a platform where people can come and get, you know, m- m- like have more information, and like access more resources on a particular topic. It's something that we want to be able to do at Rise.
Thank you
Yeah.
for making that distinction, because I think that's one thing that is really amazing, that this is so traveler focused. And
Mhm.
I do know that you've attracted a lot of industry professionals, but
Yes.
because we're travelers, right? So I
Yeah.
think
Traveler.
it speaks to us. It's not separate. It's very much a part of our identity. And so I think that it's really great that this actually can kind of transcend that barrier, because I think a lot of that resistance comes from, your everyday traveler doesn't, like you said, doesn't have access to this information. They don't have the master's degree in sustainability and travel that I have. They're,
Mhm.
in fact, if I say that I have that, they're like, don't even talk anymore, because I'm really confused by what you just said to me. I mean, not everybody, but I'm just saying, in general, even telling my friends what I do. And so I think it is
Yeah.
so, so, so important to create conversations that travelers can come into. And like you said, where it's not like, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. It's like, okay, here's the information. And I have a sociology background, so it's like so right up my
Mhm.
alley. I like really want people to look at it from this wider perspective,
Yeah,
like you said, from a systemic level, like really see, and then you can make the decisions that are aligned with your values, that are aligned with what you
exactly.
know. And I think the other part of this that has been hugely important, looking at both this and then, culturally in the United States, the conversations we've been having is addressing the fact that it's really hard to have these conversations because when you have an awareness and you know better, you have to reflect on decisions you've made in the past,
Hmm.
and that reflection can really be uncomfortable.
Hmm.
How have you guided students through that process? How have you helped them to kind of like reconcile those things?
I think modeling is important. Like, I come from a space where I made all the mistakes that I am talking about in our program today. And it is, I think it's just like to really show our students, or like, travelers who come to our program, to be compassionate, to be empathetic, like compassionate, to have compassion for themselves. And just as Dr. Anu Taranet spoke, like, beyond guilt trips, how can we move beyond our guilt and start to like m- make use of our past mistakes to inform us, and inform us on this journey, on this learning journey. Because even now, like, I just thought about this mistake that I just made not many years ago. Like, I think it was um 4 or 5 years ago. I thought I was already a like conscious traveler. And when my husband and we went to Morocco, it was during the Ramadan. And, I thought that was the most, sustainable and thoughtful trip that I had never designed for myself and, for ourselves. But then one evening, we were outside a mosque, and it was just so spectacular, with like thousands of believers, of Muslims, like praying. And it was just like that view was so moving. And out of that emotion, like I was just so moved, and I took my camera and I wanted to capture that. And I did the stupidest thing in the world. Like, what was I thinking? Right. And I immediately got stopped by someone and say, hey, what do you think you're doing? Like, yeah, that's right. Sometimes I think we will still continue to make mistakes. But the more we understand our relationship, power dynamics, our privilege, and all the issues, and understanding other cultures, and understand, like, what, like, how to behave in the most respectful way, we're going to continue to learn,
Mhm.
right? Like, maybe we will still make mistakes occasionally, but we will make a lot less mistakes than in the past. And it's just a journey. And I
Mhm.
think so far in the discussions that I see in our programs, like our spring cohort this year, or the cohort of our pilot program last year, people and participants have been really open and honest and genuine, and like willing to share,
Mhm.
because we understand that we are learning from our mistakes. And by sharing with each other, we'll be able to learn from each other as well.
Mhm.
So I think, like, overall, we're really fortunate to have cultivated a culture of learning and transparency, and not being afraid of the uncomfortable feeling of confronting our past, and because that is how we learn.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I just think that that's just seems to be a real common barrier that I see in these conversations. And like you said, we really do have to understand that, if you're talking about sustainable travel or you're talking about ethical travel, that we are going to grow, and we only know what we know in this moment,
Hmm.
and it doesn't necessarily excuse our behavior, but if as long as if we grow from situations we can keep moving forward, but it shouldn't put us at a standstill for fear of like making a mistake. And I think that can be hard, especially especially, for people like us that are like really trying to get people to engage in these conversations and travel. And then you
Mm-hmm.
think, oh my gosh, heaven forbid, if I like do the thing that I know I'm probably going to do at some point because I don't know yet, then
Mm-hmm.
it can cause this paralysis. And so I just think it's so amazing to be able to create space for authentic conversation, for deep conversation, for conversations that don't have any guilt attached, that we can
Mm-hmm.
just say, okay, like we all want to move forward, we all want to get to the bottom of this, and the only way we can do this is if we just like put it all out there. And again, like this is something I think I've really loved seeing through the projects that I've seen come out of the cohort, these conversations. It makes me so excited that these things are
Yeah.
happening, because I felt like I was always just like having them by myself because I didn't have anyone to have them with, for one. And then just being like, is anyone else noticing this? Like, does anyone else feel this way? I'm just like really connecting these dots here, and they're really just it just wasn't the time for those conversations,
Yeah.
and I'm
Well,
really lit up that it is.
welcome to the Rise community. These are the kind of conversations that we have all the time and that we encourage to, that we encourage our students to have. So yeah, this is the place where you belong. Come to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
also wanted to add a little bit, sorry, building upon, this whole discussion about learning and making mistakes and like being like not being afraid to come to terms with our past and learn how to move forward. I think as an organization, this is also important. So like um, we Rise is lucky in the sense that we are still a super young organization, but imagine organizations that have been around for like 20, 30 years. It's never too late for any organizations to do the right thing and to move in the right direction, even if like like 30 years or 20 years ago we weren't talking about sustainability, we weren't talking about anti-oppression or like anti-racism or DEI, for example. That's a way to, I mean, we shouldn't let that, stop us from moving into the right direction. So like, for example, there are terms and language, words that we used to use a lot, and we didn't know that they could be harmful to certain communities. For example, like the use of the word crippled, or like the use the word um, master bedroom, for example. Like, these are the words that we had used for decades and no one challenged the usage. And now we know that these could be hurtful terms for certain communities, and we just learn to stop using them.
Mhm.
Right, it's not. So I think, like, even for organizations or for businesses, we should have the mindset of learning and growth and be prepared to to admit, missteps that we made in the past and move on and do it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just as you were speaking to, I think that there really has been like this level of perfection and professionalism that went hand in hand with business,
Hmm.
right? Because this is how we show that we earn your business.
Yeah,
And I think people are really now leaning towards brands that share their authenticity and their vulnerability. And part of that is sharing
absolutely.
this journey. And so I think really looking at it from a business perspective, it's really, not only is it the right thing to do, but it's really what your consumers are
Hmm.
going to be drawn to, that things are really changing. And
Exactly.
so I think again, like just such an exciting moment to feel like, I feel like we're just like on the very bottom step of this movement and this motion. But I think it's so great to anticipate what this could mean. I would like to talk just a little bit. I mean, we've obviously spoken about the programs that you offer, but I would really like to talk about specifically like who's it for? Who should take these programs? I know you have new Teachers Rise program, which I actually
Yes.
got a sneak peek of this with Eliza like a year ago when we talked. She's like, we're thinking about this thing. And I'm getting ready to travel with my daughters for a year. And so that's part of where I got so excited is, okay, great, let's get children in on these conversations. Let's give
Yes.
teacher the tools to guide these conversations. So again, like already a super fan, but I would love to hear like what are these things that are in the works that have come up after the flagship and pilot program?
Thank you for the opportunity for me to share a little bit about our exciting programs in the pipeline. I'm really excited about Teachers Rise. The full name of the program is Teachers Rise, Educating for a Better World Through Sustainable Travel. So it is going to be a 3-week professional development program for K-12 teachers. And like, of course, it's not only limited to K-12 teachers, but any educators or school administrators who would like to learn more about how the concept of sustainable travel can actually enrich their own travels and also study tours and field trips for their students. So this is going to take place in July, and we're just like really excited about it because I've always thought, coming from a background in education, I've always thought that teacher training is so important because and you have inspired a teacher, then like imagine how many kids or children or students that teacher would be able to inspire, as a result. So we really have, the Teachers Rise program is so comprehensive. We would be looking at like how we used to travel as teachers and as human beings, and then like what is going on right now and in the future, like how can we like what are the gaps that we've identified in the ways we used to do field trips and study tours, and how can we make these experience more enriching for the students while also kind of giving back to the communities and the environments that we visit. So yeah, super exciting. This course again is primarily for teachers, but then I imagine that some parents would probably want to take it too, because we want to be able to like provide the tools and the knowledge for parents eventually to so that they can like inspire their own kids to be more mindful travelers. For now we only have the teacher program, but in the future, especially with Eliza, we're really thinking about like having something for young kids,
Mhm.
so that because it's never too early to start, thinking about our responsibility and our relationship with the world, right, as we move around. So that's one exciting program that we have in the pipeline. And then another thing is, as we expand our curriculum, we are adding short courses. We'll continue to add short courses on issues like, for example, the one that we released last week on ethical storytelling for travelers. And then we will have how to travel more ethically as a digital nomad. And we'll have ocean conservation, and then there's a course on unconscious bias and cultural humility in travel, taught by Amanda Kendall and myself. I will also be creating a course on travel and migration. And in that course, we'll be talking about diaspora travel and also the global refugee crisis, which is something really dear to my heart. Um, yeah, and then we are talking about the possibility of also creating a course on the ethics of dark tourism. Yeah, so that is one that gets me really excited as well. And then we also have a new line of short courses that are more focused on destinations, and that is called our Conscious Travel series. And in this Conscious Travel series, we'll have courses on various popular destinations, like the first one on Guatemala, and then we have courses on Bhutan, Bermuda, Costa Rica, Rwanda, Portugal. What else? Uganda. I don't remember. There are so many. Like, I'm so excited. So we through this conscious travel series, we partner with local and or indigenous travel businesses or communities or educators to build these courses. And so basically, Rise is providing them with the platform for them to tell their own stories, teach their own culture and history, and tell travelers, what are the cultural do's and don'ts in their travel, in their country, and what social issues that are affecting the local population that tourists should be cognizant of before they travel there, and so that they would be more mindful and sensitive to to the topics they talk about with with the local people. So yeah, we're really excited about that short course series as well, because it is also a way for Rise Travel Institute to provide direct financial empowerment to our local partners, especially during this time when the pandemic's still not over yet, and travel is maybe slowly picking up in some places, but in some places, in other places, tourism is still suffering pretty badly. So yeah, we want to be able to help them diversify their income through student enrollments. So that is one big project that we have, and hopefully this year we'll be able to launch a few destination courses, and in 2023, hopefully we'll be able to release all the courses that we already have listed on our website.
Excellent. I'm so excited by all of that. And it just reminded me of like 10 more questions that I have, but unfortunately we're gonna run out of time. However, the great thing for that is that anyone who's listening and you're being inspired by all of these topics and conversations, I mean, you've heard me say it a million times already, but I can't speak highly enough of Rise Travel Institute.
Thank you.
I really encourage my listeners and people who travel with me to start there. Like, I just think it's our responsibility. I think as travelers now, this is where we need to start. I've said it before, like people have said, well, travel is supposed to be, this and this and this. And I'm like, I just think it's not anymore. It's not like you can have fun. I don't want to encourage or, say that people can't have fun when they travel, but I think they can't take it for granted. And I think they can't leave their personal responsibility out of the travel story anymore. Mm-hmm. And so for people that want to learn how they can play a better part in this, I'm really excited for them to be able to take short programs, travel, learn about destinations. I love Guatemala, and I'm so excited that you're starting there. And yeah, so for people who want to find Rise, where can they learn, follow you, find more information, register for courses?
Sure. So our website is risetravelinstitute.org. And we are on LinkedIn. We're most active on LinkedIn, but we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, a little less, but we're there. And then we also have, our entire curriculum is hosted on Thinkific, and you can get the link directly on our website. So there you will see all the listings of all the courses that you can already enroll in. And then on our website, you'll be able to see all the courses or programs that we're currently offering, and also those that are in the pipeline. So yeah, and we also have a podcast, and I hope to be able to invite Christine on our podcast. I can't believe that I'm making the ask on your podcast right now. But yeah, so we also have that podcast, and we also have a content team who write, excellent, like really inspiring articles about, how do they colonize our travel, and how to be more inclusive. Basically, really like all the topics that are aligned with our program. So if you want to take a peek at, what kind of topics we address in our programs, you can maybe perhaps start with reading a couple of those articles, checking them out, and see if that's something for you.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I just highly encourage you. There's so many great resources that are free. There's all these programs.
Yes.
And Vincie is offered to extend for my listeners from the Lotus, Sojourns, and Soul of Travel community a discount of 10% off courses. So the code for that is Lotus 10. And like I said, like there's no benefit to me. It's to you. It's to all of us. Like, I just really hope that people will take advantage of that, because I truly believe this is just what we need right now in travel, and to create like not just the travel experiences we want, but really like the world that we want to see because of our travelers and our connection to the world. So as we wrap up, Vincie, I have a few rapid fire-ish questions to end our call. So
I love those.
we'll see how that goes. And again, like, I just thank you so much. I feel like we could have probably had a 20-part series conversation, but I know that it lives out there. So I was telling Vincie before we started, I listened to a few other great interviews with her. So just go wherever you listen to podcasts and Google her name. There's lots of other information and fun stories to hear. So, okay. What is your favorite book or movie that offers you a travel escape or inspires adventure?
Wow, that's I don't have one. I have so many. I don't know where to start. Wow. Whew. This was really tough. Can I
Really
come
not
back to
fair.
it?
That's why
Yeah.
it's rapid fire-ish. Okay, so maybe the first one that
It
comes
doesn't
to
work
mind. Yeah.
The first
Can
one
you?
that comes to mind,
Mhm.
Beyond Good Trips.
Yeah, no, it's so good. I
It is
agree.
so good. Yeah.
And she's going to be joining me for a conversation in a couple of weeks as
Awesome.
well. So I'm so excited for our listeners to get to hear more about that, because also that book is referenced a lot.
I'll make sure to tune in.
Thank you. What is always in your suitcase or backpack when you travel?
Ooh, my reusable umbrella pouch.
And what has been your favorite destination?
Oh, come on. This is so unfair. This is so tough. Whoa, Morocco?
I haven't been, but
Mhm.
man, I want to go. Where do you still long to visit?
Iran.
Mm.
Mhm.
I have early in my travel career, I met a woman that spent a lot of time traveling in the Middle East, and I'm so like, yes, I'm with you. There's so many places there that I just
So beautiful.
so beautiful,
Yeah,
and I'm so entranced by the culture. And really, this is
exactly.
such a great place for all the work that you're doing to be able to bring all these conversations into travel.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Um, okay, and let's see, where do you eat that immediately connects you to a place you've been?
Sorry, say that again?
What do you eat that immediately connects you or takes you back to
Oh.
a place you've been?
Noodles from my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is the person that inspired or encouraged you to set out and explore the world?
Um, my my mentor, Mary Pat Champeau.
And if you could take an adventure with one person, fictional or real,
Hmm.
alive or past, who would it be?
Ah. I don't know why it takes so long for me to like answer these questions. There are so many great choices. That's the one. I think I would love to take my grandma without that. Yeah, because she did not have the privilege that I have to travel the world. So I would love to take her on many more adventures. She's still, healthy and strong at 93, but she cannot travel the world like I do. So, yeah, in an imaginary world, I would love to take her.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I feel a little bit like a kid on Christmas morning after the presents were opened because I've been waiting so long and it
Oh, that's
happened.
so
And I'm a
sweet of you
little
to say
sad
that.
that it's done. But thank you so much, Vincie, for joining me
Thank you
today. I
so
really
much.
appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. I really enjoyed the conversation and I look forward to more in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.